Welcome to the first ever virtual press conference in New York Knicks history as we introduce Tom Thibodeau as the 31st head coach in franchise history. I'm Greg Schwartz, Vice President of Public Relations for the Knicks. Tom returned to the Knicks, for whom he was an assistant coach from 1996 to 2003, including that magical run in 1999 to the NBA Finals. Tom, as a head coach, holds a career record of 352 and 246 over 8 seasons with Chicago and Minnesota. His 589 career winning percentage is 11th best in NBA history among coaches who have coached at least 500 games. He was named the NBA Coach of the Year for the 2010-11 season and coached the Eastern Conference in the 2012 NBA All-Star Game in Orlando, Florida. As head coach of the Timberwolves, he led the franchise to the postseason in 2018, ending a 13-year drought for the franchise. As head coach of the Bulls, his team had the best record in the NBA in back-to-back seasons, and they went to the postseason all 5 seasons he was there, including the Eastern Conference Finals in 2010-11. That team won 62 games, which were the most by a Bulls team since their championship season of 1997-98, and was one of 3 50-plus win seasons under his tutelage. In his 28 seasons as an NBA head or assistant coach, he has been to the postseason 19 times, including 3 trips to the NBA Finals and an NBA title in 2008 with Boston. Tom is joined on our virtual dais today by Knicks President Leon Rose and General Manager Scott Perry. We will start with opening statements from all 3 and then take questions from the media. We ask that the media raises their virtual hands, and we will then call on you and bring you onto the screen. We will start things off hearing from Knicks President Leon Rose.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. It's good to be together to talk basketball. And we're also very excited for the restart tonight. Let me start by saying that this is a very exciting day for our franchise. We hire not only a great basketball coach, but an elite head coach in Tom Thibodeau. I have known and respected Coach for a very long time. He's a proven winner at all levels. His coaching principles and goals embody everything that we want Knicks basketball to represent. His commitment to the game, to his players, and to deliver winning basketball is truly special. He will work tirelessly to ensure each player is held accountable, develops his skills and a winning attitude, and that the team comes to play every night. As an agent, I've had clients and known many others who have played for Tom Thibodeau. They all have spoken highly of him and his coaching ability, especially how much they have improved under his leadership. Let me assure you, we did our due diligence during the coaching search. We were open-minded and heard from many diverse candidates with various coaching experiences and philosophies. The thoroughness of the search is what we felt the fans deserved. We wanted to get it right. Tom is the right person for the job, and we look forward to collaborating with him as we build a winning culture. I also want to thank Jim Dolan for his support and providing the resources over the past 5 months to allow me to assemble a diverse, well-respected, and extremely talented front office consisting of Scott Perry, William Wesley, Brock Aller, Walt Perrin, and Frank Zanin, among others. Today, with the hiring of Tom Thibodeau, we take the next step in building a strong organization to deliver you winning basketball. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you, Tom.
Thanks, Leon. And good afternoon. Hope that everyone here is in good health and that you continue to stay safe. There's a few things I want to add to what Leon has already stated. First and foremost, I truly share in his enthusiasm today with the hiring of Coach Tom Thibodeau. I have been working in this league for over 20 years, and I've heard many positive things about Coach Thibodeau from players, coaches, and front office staff from around the league. He is very well respected and one of the top coaches in our game. During my time in this league, I have watched teams that he has coached, and a few things were abundantly clear to me. His teams compete and play hard every single night. His teams defend, rebound, and share the basketball. And there's an accountability present with all of his players and coaches. They play as a team. We, along with our fan base, expect these qualities to be on display on a daily basis. And while Tom's reputation is that of a defensive coach, and deservedly so, let me remind everyone that he coached 3 teams that were in the top 10 in offensive rating, 2 of which were in the top 5. We're currently in the process of building out Tom's staff, and he will have the autonomy in who he hires. Based on the conversations that we've had, this staff will be diverse and very strong in all areas, especially in player development. I also want to take a few moments and let you know where we stand today in respect to our new world of COVID-19. The NBA is currently in communication with the NBPA about what the non-bubble teams will be able to do with our players. Our front office has been actively involved along with the 7 other organizations through this entire process. Our hope is that in August, Coach Thibodeau will be able to get right to work in overseeing organized team activities in our home market. And despite not being included in the 22-team bubble in Orlando, we completely support the league's decision and hope for everyone's continued safety and well-being in Orlando as the season officially restarts tonight. We are truly excited to see NBA basketball once again. And I personally will be scouting games in Orlando starting tomorrow, and our front office will also be closely following all the games remotely. COVID has definitely changed how we operate, but we continue to prepare for the draft and free agency, as well as help our current players improve their games. Today marks another major step for our franchise toward building a winning culture here in New York. I am personally excited and look forward to working closely with Tom and his staff as we look to make the Knicks a winning team again. And with that, it is my pleasure to present to you Coach Tom Thibodeau, new coach of the New York Knicks.
Thank you, Scott, Leon, and Greg. I'd also like to thank Jim Dolan and William Wesley for giving me this great opportunity. In addition, I'd like to thank CAA, Howie Nugent, and Mike Levine, along with my agent, Spencer Breeker, for putting the deal together. Obviously, I'm very excited today to be here. This is a dream come true for me. This is my dream job. I've been there before. I have a great understanding of New York. I think we have the best city in the world, we have the best arena in the world, and we have the best fans in the world. I was there throughout the 90s, and there was an incredible experience for me. To be on that bench as an assistant coach and experience the finals, there's nothing like being in New York City at Madison Square Garden for big games. I also want to take this time to thank Jeff Van Gundy for hiring me in 1996 and for being a dear friend and an advisor for me. Those times during the 90s were really special. A lot of great teams, great players, players like Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, Larry Johnson, John Starks, and many others made it a very enjoyable experience. I think when we look back at those teams, we saw how hard they played. They gave us everything they had each and every night. And just as important was the coaching staff that Jeff put together. It was one of the best staffs ever assembled. Guys like Brendan Malone and Don Chaney, Jeff Nix, Steve Clifford, Andy Greer, Mike Malone, many head coaches that are in the league today. But the best thing for me in terms of growth were the experiences we were able to share with each other. I look at the people that Jeff had worked for, and Jeff is an all-time great coach. He worked for Pat Riley, who's, I think, the best. And then Don Nelson, Rick Pitino, John McLeod. Then you have Brendan Malone, who worked for Hubie Brown, and Chuck Daly. You have Don Chaney, who played for Red Auerbach and worked under Bill Fitch. You had Jeff Nix, who had worked for Digger Phelps. I had worked for Bill Musselman and Jerry Tarkanian. you felt like you were going to the best clinic in the world every day. So it was tremendous growth. But the three main reasons why this job was so appealing to me was the current roster that we have now. It's young and talented, and there's room for growth, and that's exciting to me. Secondly, is to work for Leon and Wes, two people that I've known for an extremely long time. And then I'm just getting to know Scott now, and he's one of the most respected executives in the league. And then thirdly is all the draft picks that have been acquired, and also the cap space that we have. We have many different ways to improve the team. I think the biggest thing for me and our staff, once we get going, is to lay out how we're going to go about things. So the initial steps for our staff will be to contact each player and to get in touch with them and visit them. And then we got to lay out the plan. We got to establish a work ethic. We got to build championship habits every single day. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is to bring a championship back to the city where it's synonymous with winning in championships, and that's in New York to win a championship. So we're looking to do all those things. I think when you think about style of play, there's 5 things that we're going to look to do on a consistent basis, and that's going to be defend, rebound, be low turnover, ball hits the paint, and then share the ball, make the extra pass. Those are core values. And then we're going to try to do that every day, and I can't wait to get started.
Thank you, Coach, and welcome back to New York. Before we take our first question, we want to recognize a member of the media who we recently lost. In a normal press conference setting, we would have a photo opportunity, and longtime New York sports photographer Anthony Causey would be front and center for that. Unfortunately, Anthony lost his battle with COVID-19 in April. He will be dearly missed by all of us, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family. We will now begin our question portion of this event. As a reminder, media members should raise their virtual hands if they have a question. If you no longer have a question, please unraise the hand. We will also then prompt you to unmute, so please do that as well. Our first question comes from a very special guest from the Garden of Dreams Foundation.
Hi, my name is Miles. And I want to ask you a question. What made you decide that you wanted to be the new Knicks coach?
Well, I think all the things above. I think it's always been my dream job. I'm excited about our young and talented roster and the challenge that's ahead of us. It had everything that I was looking for. It's got the people that I enjoy being around, and so I'm looking forward to it.
That was a great question, Miles. Thank you for that. Our next question comes from Brian Mahoney of the Associated Press.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much. Tom, when you talk about this being your dream job, we've heard a lot of people say that through the years. When New York wins, it's great. But obviously, since you were here, that hasn't happened. And a lot of people who maybe say they wanted to go to the Knicks, players and coaches through the years have said, maybe that's too big of a challenge. I don't want to do that anymore. Why has it maintained in you that you still want to?
Well, I think, it's always been my dream, and maybe part of that is I grew up in Connecticut. My father, my family, we grew up as Knicks fans. I think I experienced it during the 90s, and there was no better place to be than Madison Square Garden. And so I love challenges. I love that city. I love the arena. I love the fans, and I'm excited about the team. So I can't wait to get going.
Our next question comes from Steve Popper from Newsday.
Hey, Tom. Good to see you. Just having done a rebuild in Minnesota, did you give any thought this summer to waiting to see what opened up with, your name has come up with some other jobs that could open up? And I guess how much does Leon and Wes being in place influence that decision to go ahead and jump right into this?
I think that's part of the equation. Obviously, my relationship with them, I've known them for over 2 decades. They've been involved in just about every major decision that I've made. So, as I mentioned, it's always been my dream job. So the fact that it's my dream job and those guys are there, it just seemed to make a lot of sense to me. And then, of course, the way it's positioned, with, the current roster that we have, the draft picks that we've stockpiled, and then, of course, the cap space.
Our next question comes from Bruce Beck from NBC.
Hey, Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Bruce.
How do you turn this around? No playoffs, 7 straight years, and a current roster that probably is considered thin at best. How can you do this, Tom?
You go step by step. I think you don't skip over anything. And the first thing is to lay the foundation, develop your plan, and then work the plan. And the steps are incremental. You don't make major jumps without going through each step. So I think the first step is to establish the work ethic and how we want to play.
Our next question comes from Ian Begley from SNY.
Hey guys, hope everyone's family is doing well. Leon, this one's for you. You know, you've been working in this league for a long time. You know the importance of having everybody on the same page from an ownership, management, coach standpoint. We all know you have a long-standing relationship with Tom. How much did that factor into your decision, and how confident are you that everybody can row in the same direction during your tenure here with Tom as coach?
Obviously, the relationship gives me a comfort level in knowing Tom for that long, but going through the process and really, evaluating all aspects of everything and realizing Tom was like really the perfect candidate for this job from the standpoint of, that he's going to demand accountability, he's going to have development, and he's going to create a winning culture. And I think he touched on that, just now. But, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that our relationship, gives me a level of comfort. But I know, and I've watched him work over the last 20 years, and the fact that he's won everywhere he's been, it was an overriding factor.
Our next question comes from Chris Eisman from The Record.
Hey, Tom. What's your approach to developing some of these young guys? I mean, are you someone who thinks that young players have to play as much as possible to grow? I mean, what's kind of your approach you take when bringing along some of these younger players?
Both. I think you want to set up your development plan for the summer, and it carries over into the season. So you have pre-practice, and then, of course, practice is part of development as well, and then post-practice. But I think game time is important also. So if a young player is not getting the appropriate amount of time to develop, we'll utilize the G League. I think that's become a big part of our league, and we'll certainly take advantage of that.
Next question comes from Stephen Bondi, The Daily News.
Hey, can you hear me? Am I here? Hello?
Yes.
All right, cool. Tom, how you doing?
How you doing?
What you took over a rebuilding situation in Minnesota. What can you take from that experience that you can apply here, and things you might have learned, things you might do the same, things you might do differently?
Yeah, I think you learn from each situation. You could go back to Boston. The year before, they were a lottery team, and that team was different because of the acquisition of Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. So that rebuild was different. And then, of course, Chicago was more of a 500 team. Minnesota was more of a total rebuild and a team that had not won a lot for a long, long time. So I think you take from each experience, but each experience is different. So I think we have to get in, we've got to study, we have to prepare, and we have to develop our plan and then work our plan. So I'm excited about it. I think anytime you go into any situation, you start, you think about the ways you can improve your club, and you start with the players that you have. Your internal development is paramount. So I think you start there, then we'll look at the draft to add talent. We'll also look at free agency to add talent, and we'll look at trade to add talent. There's 4 ways to improve the team, and we'll look at all of them.
Our next question comes from Mike Vaccaro of the New York Post.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking the question. I assume that the last couple of months, while this has been something that you've been pursuing, the job, you've seen a lot of tape on this year's team. But I'm curious if, during the context of the season itself, how much you were able to see of the team playing its games, and what your thoughts were just in general of the players that you're going to try now, kind of develop into something better than they were.
Yeah, and I'd say, I watched a few games during the season, but I did a lot of traveling. I was visiting with different teams. I also went on vacation a couple of times. I know people don't think I do that, but I got away and laid on the beach in Miami for a couple of weeks, so that was fun. But since I started interviewing, I watched games, and you try to get a feel for who each player is and how you can improve. So, and obviously it was a challenging year. And I also want to mention that Mike Miller, I thought, did a terrific job under trying circumstances. So I know it wasn't easy, but I thought you had some players that really stepped up and did a good job. And but there's a lot of work to do. I think one of the most important things that you do in studying the team is just look at net efficiency. And when you see you're a minus 6.54, you realize that there's a lot of work, and hopefully we could get everyone to make the commitment to play for each other, put the team first, and to start building winning habits.
Our next question comes from Mike Vorkanoff from The Athletic.
Hey guys, Tom, congratulations on the job. Leon, this is for you initially. Now that you're a few months into the job, what is your time horizon for trying to build the Knicks into a team that can be a playoff contender? And how did the coaching search and who you ultimately selected in Tom figure into that timeline you've set for the organization?
We have not set a timeline. We are taking it one day at a time. We felt that Tom was that coach that can take us from development to becoming a perennial winner. And as Tom said earlier, that happens one step at a time. And at the moment, we don't know exactly what the roster will be moving forward. We have decisions that we have to make, and but the important thing is to instill the culture, focus on the development, and take it from there.
Our next question comes from Tina Servasio from Fox 5.
Hi, Tom. Congratulations. As you've been talking, and Leon was just talking about the roster situation and the continued development, and you said you're excited for some of these young players. Is there anyone in particular that stands out to you that you feel could be a contributor on this Knicks team under your system and style of play?
Well, I'd say, and again, I want to get around the players to work with them individually so I can get to know them better. But just based on film and what I've seen, I really think that RJ has a very bright future, as does Mitchell Robinson. So those are two that stand up. But I think we have a lot of young talent. And, I don't like to make qualifications on people and until I get around them, and then they're starting with a zero base with me, and we'll go from there.
Our next question comes from Howard Megdale, Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Appreciate your time. Tom, welcome. I had two philosophical questions that I wanted to run by you. The first one dealing with the league, which is moving towards keeping minutes down for players. I'm wondering what your thinking is about that and if it's evolved since Chicago and Minnesota. And then the second one is that many of your best lineups, especially in Chicago, utilize two bigs. I'm wondering whether you see that as a primary way of going forward or if this is really more of a 4-out, 5-out lead in your mind at this point.
Yeah, and I think, well, to answer the first question about minutes, I think when you look at the league and you see the load management that's going on, but it's more, I think, positionally based. I think if you went back 5 years, you would see that LeBron, Durant, Harden, the late Kobe Bryant, those guys were all playing 38, 39 minutes. And so you would obviously be matched up when they're on the floor. If I had a Jimmy Butler or a Luol Deng, they would be guarding them. So when they go out, those guys would go out. When they go back in, they go back in. But those numbers have gone down now. So you're not going to be at that disadvantage where they have their best player out there and you don't. So it's more positionally matched up. I think you talk with your sports scientists and your athletic trainers, and you're always monitoring that. And then to answer your question about the league changing, I agree with you totally. I think that the league has changed from 3 out, 2 in, then it went to 4 out, 1 in, and now we're seeing a lot more 5 out, where you're seeing at least one big on every team or one center, a guy who puts pressure on the rim, being able to shoot the 3 to open up the floor. You're seeing less post-ups, although the 2 teams that, last year, if you went back and really studied Toronto, they posted the ball with Siakam quite a bit. People overlook the fact that Golden State has always done that. They use the split game out of the post. And so I think that's still part of the game. But a lot of teams now want to 5 out to create space where you can drive and kick.
All right, we're going to give Mark Berman another shot at this.
Yeah, Tom. You mentioned RJ and Mitchell. I was wondering how much of an impact you feel you could have on Kevin Knox and even Frank Ntilikina, who's known as a defensive player. And then I have a question for Scott. How, with the virtual interviews, how more difficult was it, or how is it different than the last coaching search you were involved in when it was in person?
Berman, you get two questions. Scott, you want to go first?
No, look, this was an extremely thorough process and a very informative one for us. While not being in person can present, a few little challenges, I thought overall was really good. The coaches got a chance to really, dive in and show, what they're all about and discuss their philosophies, and allowed us to really be engaged throughout this and throughout the process and do a very thorough job. And just so happy that at the end of this process, which was very thorough, we ended up with this quality head coach in Tom Thibodeau, and just excited to move forward with it.
Mark, I can't believe you're still around, but to answer your question, with Frank and Kevin, they're both young guys that have talent. And that being said, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not making any real observations or evaluations until I get to be around them. Like most young players, there's growing pains that you go through, and there's steps that players have to take. And sometimes we tend to measure guys against guys that are already established, and you forget the steps that those guys have taken to get to where they are. So I think that's an important part of it. But I think to understand how you do get there is by your work and your sacrifice and your commitment. I think one's determination and their perseverance is critical for their development.
Our next question comes from Steve Popper from Newsday.
I'm going to go the Berman route and have one for Scott and one for Tom. For Tom, just kind of, what did that year away? I guess you haven't had that in a long time. What did that year away do for you? And for Scott, you're the one guy there, I guess, who didn't have a long relationship with Tom. Just what you saw in him during this process, this interview process, and I guess what you knew about him before, kind of what you've learned.
First of all, even though the interesting thing about our league, I've been in this league over 20 years, and even though I didn't have a personal relationship with Tom Thibodeau, kind of felt like I knew him a little bit because we know a lot of the same people, have a lot of respect for the same people. And it's a very small industry, if you will. And so I knew this guy could coach basketball. And I think during this process, it allowed me personally to get to know the man better. And just really see, how our personalities could come together and mesh, and felt really good about our time talking basketball. And he's got a lot of the same values about the game that I was raised in, and that came through very clear to me throughout the process.
Steve, to answer your question about the year off, for me, I love having the opportunity to step away, and you never want to stay the same. So part of it was just to recharge and get away and relax. The other part was to learn. I think whatever your circumstances are at that particular time, you try to make the most of those. And so I have a lot of friends in the league. I had an opportunity to go out and spend time with Doc Rivers, spend a lot of time out there with him, spent time in Boston. I spent time down in Miami, spent some time out at Golden State, in Orlando with Steve Clifford. So it was great because it allows you to keep up with the league and see, you get new ideas, you get different ideas. Sometimes you get confirmation of something that you were doing, or you see a better way to do something. So I think, I enjoy that. When you're in the middle of it, like sometimes you don't have the time to do stuff like that. But it's great when you can step away and pick people's brains. And oftentimes you never know where a good idea may come from. A good idea could come from a high school coach, a junior high coach, junior college coach, a AAU coach. You're borrowing from everyone. And so that's really the way I approached it.
Our next question comes from Brian Mahoney, the Associated Press.
Yeah, Leon, one for you. Obviously, you didn't get a lot of time to see this team play before the season ended, maybe just a week or so. Was there any sort of challenge in conducting a coaching search without having a lot of time to maybe see the team play and know what maybe the best style was for this group or anything like that?
No, and I think that was one of the real benefits of the coaching search. We really met with a variety of coaches with all different levels of experience, with different philosophies, and with different opinions on our team. So it was really educational for me and insightful for me to be able to, have a deep dive with all of the coaches that we spoke to and to hear all the different thoughts and opinions, as well as, obviously having Scott here to be able to give me his opinion of the team and the other people in the front office. But, look, if in a perfect world, would I have loved to have had more time? Yes. But at the same time, people's problems in this world right now are a lot worse than mine. And there's a lot of people really suffering. And, but with regard to where we are right now, I feel good about, I'm really thrilled about today. I'm thrilled about where we are. I feel excited about where we're going.
Our next question comes from Bruce Beck, NBC.
Leon, this question is for you. You interviewed a lot of candidates and still came back to Tom, who many of us thought really was your first choice from the beginning. Did the lengthy interview process reaffirm your idea that Tom was the best candidate for this job?
Well, I guess obviously since we selected him, it reaffirmed it. But just to be clear, going into this search, we had an open mind. There's other coaches in the search that I and others in our group have had relationships with over the years. But yeah, no question, going through the process and going through all of this, affirmed thoughts that I've had about Tom and feelings that I've had about Tom as a coach. And, that's why we had to do the process. That's why we had to go through all the things that we went through, is in order to make, the final decision, the group.
We have time for two more questions. Our next question comes from Steph Bondi of the Daily News.
Hey, Tom. I want to ask about your assistant staff. I know Scott just said you had total autonomy in picking your staff. Is that your impression, that you'll be able to pick your staff? Because I know some of us have reported and heard that the front office is having input on that. Can you just give some insight on what that process is like, picking your staff? And there's been reports about Mike Woodson will join the staff.
Yeah, no final decisions have been made, but when you're putting your staff together, you're looking at the qualities that you think will fit your team best, what you think you need. And so I think you always sit down with your front office to go over people that you think can help. And so I'm confident that we're going to sit down. I'm going to listen to the people that they have. I'm going to recommend some people that I know. Some of them are going to be on both lists. So I'm real comfortable with that, and I think we're going to get a great staff, and I'm looking forward to getting started with them.
And our final question comes from Mike Vorkanoff of The Athletic.
Hey, Tom. For you, I think player development is mentioned at like every press conference when there's a new coach hired. What do you tend to do in terms of your player development philosophy to actualize that with the Knicks? And do you want to have like a separate player development team within the coaching staff? Like, what's your plan for that to develop the young guys on the roster?
Yeah, and that Mike, that's a great question, and that was something that in traveling around the league and just seeing how the different teams are handling it, because of you're seeing very large staffs now, and in some cases the player development guys are guys that could also get on the floor. So if you have some older players on your roster, you tend to go with more player development guys so your younger guys can get the work that they need. But I think we'll look at our roster, and as I said, we have a very young team, so I think that we have to prioritize that. Again, we'll have quite a few guys, and I think we'll fit every need that we have.
Congratulations, Coach Thibodeau. Once again, we want to thank everybody for joining us. Stay safe, and we hope to see you in person soon.